Hello, welcome. My name is Sarah Jane. So I'm here to lead this gentle yoga class for the next hour on behalf of Hands to Heart Center. Hands to Heart Center Yoga for the People is a nonprofit organization that shares the healing practice of yoga with people affected by addiction, poverty, and trauma in Greater Boston. Hands to Heart Center would like to thank the Boston Public Library for partnering with us on this virtual project. So I'm joining you, again, my name is Sarah Jane, and I'm joining you for this gentle yoga session from Jamaica Plain in Boston. And in this corner of Eastern Massachusetts, we're on the traditional territory of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket peoples. And I'd like to express gratitude for all the keepers of the earth, especially around Earth Day. And also gratitude for you, for your practice, for being here. So we will set an intention prior to beginning class. And if you'd like, you can sit up or you can lie back for this portion. We simply want to have a collective, as much as that's possible in this virtual setting, but a collective understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. So I'll offer a few words about a shared intention, and then I will leave some silence so that you can set your own intention for this time. So collectively, we intend to feel into this body, heart, mind with awareness, to meet what's here with kindness, and to take care of ourselves for our own and everyone's benefit. And knowing that when we feel well, our good works ripple outward in ever-expanding circles. And taking care of ourselves, we make ourselves more available to others so that we can truly take our place in the interconnected web of life of which we're all part. So the intention to practice for our own and everyone's benefit. I invite you to set your own intention for this practice. Perhaps feeling inwardly, allowing to percolate up into consciousness, a dedication or an idea to which you'd like to dedicate this time. And now we will start moving into some mindfulness meditation and yoga asana postures and some breathing exercises. So to start, if you're not already lying down, you might lie down. However you have been engaged today, if you're watching live, it's an afternoon, not just any afternoon, Friday afternoon. So many folks, not all, may be starting to unwind after a work week. That may not be the case for you. Wherever you are, whatever time of day it is that you are practicing with this video, I invite you to really honor your energy. And if it feels as though it would be nice to lie down right now, lie down. We're going to rest our eyes once we're lying down. So you can close your eyes fully or partially. If you close them only partially, maybe keeping your gaze low and soft and steady. And however you've positioned your body, feel the areas of the body that are touching what's below. Bring your attention to these contact points and feel the sense of weightedness, the sense of here-ness, presence of the body, resting in whatever shape it's resting. This is like an arrival. You can feel not only pressure at your contact points, but you might be able to detect textures, temperature, just below the surface, a sense of density or space, movement or stillness. arriving here now. And we might, in fact, reinforce our sense of place by imagining we could grow roots from these contact points down into the floor below us, and however many floors are below us, down into the very foundation of the building we're in, and down into the very earth itself, the roots pushing into the soil, growing far, growing deep, interconnecting and intertwining with others' roots. Let this root system you are growing be bidirectional, so you can draw up through it nourishment from the earth, that stabilizing energy, that life force. You can also send down through the root system your burdens, any fears. You're not getting rid of them. We're not trying to bypass the work of taking good care of ourselves, knowing what's present. We are just sharing our burdens more broadly with this, with the Earth Mother and all who are alive, all beings buzzing around, flying through the air, swimming in the waters of this earth. So drawing up nourishment and also sharing burdens. And feel all of this stabilizing in your low belly, your inner ground. So just as the earth is a resource for us, we have our own inner resources, our own inner ground. We can get in touch with a sense of stabilizing energy in the low belly. You might take a hand there right now, whether you're lying back or sitting up. Maybe just resting a hand on the low belly and feeling within. In this quiet and this stillness, perhaps a sense of aliveness that is settled. And now, let's find our breath, another resource we can go to whenever we feel depleted or rattled off center. Find the breath. Where do you most easily feel it in the body? Noticing that right now. Maybe it's in the belly or the chest or the nostrils. So watch that you don't think about or analyze your breath. You want to feel the breath. So shift from thinking to feeling as best you can. That shift may have to happen several times over the next hour. Shift from thinking to feeling. Feel the breath in the body. Not trying to fix or improve it. It's just fine how it is. For now, just feeling it. Feel the inhales and feel the exhales. Inhales receiving from the atmosphere around us, energy. And exhales, having integrated what we need, we let go of what we don't. Inhales receiving, exhales letting go. And maybe stay here like this for a few more cycles of breath. Enjoying the stillness, and we'll get moving shortly. How is this now? And when this feels complete, you can gently flutter your eyes open, lift your gaze, and we're going to move into our asana practice, taking up different postures and making different shapes and creating different movements with the body. So if you're not already on a mat and you have one, you can find your mat. Otherwise, a blanket or a rug will do. So we will come to a tabletop position and feel the weight in the hands and in the knees. Maybe swaying around a little bit. feeling the texture below us. And starting to slow the breath now. Just a few moments ago, I was saying the breath doesn't need to be special, it doesn't need to be fixed or improved, but now we are going to enhance the breath. Start to breathe, drawing in through the nose, down through the central line into the belly, slowly, low and slow, the breath. And exhale out slowly as well. And then starting to move with the breath. The next time you inhale, you might drop the belly, pull the sternum through the gateway, the shoulders looking up gently for the back bend, cow pose. And as you exhale, rounding the back, dropping the head, inflating across the shoulder blades, cat pose. And inhaling back to cow. And exhaling, creating cat. Don't just get into each of these positions. Move slowly and let the shape of the spine evolve from one to the next. Inhaling at the pace of your own breath. Let the breath be the driver of movement here. Inhaling and exhaling. The next time you inhale, cow pose as before, with the subsequent exhale, push back a little bit. And then inhale, coming back to table and even creating cow. And exhale, pushing back, maybe a little further. Inhale to cow. Exhale with a little rounding of the back. Maybe come all the way into your child's pose on the exhale, and inhale to cow and exhale, pushing back maybe to child's pose. If you like this at your own pace. So you can continue in either cat-cow or this cow-child pose, two-pose sequence, or if you'd like, if you want to add a downward facing dog, the next time you inhale, also tuck your toes, and as you exhale, lift to downward facing dog, but then inhale with control, drop the knees, find cow, and exhale to downward facing dog. Inhaling to cow. Exhaling to downward facing dog. And back and forth. And if you don't want to practice downward facing dog today, or if it's just not an appropriate pose, given something that is true for you, a condition of the body, then go back to cat-cow or cow-child's pose. For those of you who like pushing back into downward facing dog on your exhale, you might like to add, after your next exhale to downward facing dog, and inhale to plank, and exhale to downward facing dog, and inhale to plank, and exhale to downward facing dog, and inhale to plank, like that, if you'd like. So we've got lots of options here. I'm just going to pause so I can speak more easily, but the invitation is for you to continue in one of these two pose sequences for maybe 3 to 5 more cycles of breath, and eventually wind down and come into a child's pose. So your child's pose might be with the legs together. You might have a block or a blanket or a pillow underneath your sit bones, holding you up a little bit higher. You might have your knees out wide. I'm inviting you to do any variation of child's pose, but eventually winding down your two pose vinyasas and coming into child's pose. So after a few cycles of breath in child's pose, we might feel a little more rooted, like we We're attempting to engender that sense of rootedness at the very beginning. So you might feel like that again, settling after some movement with the body a little bit warmer this time. And choose one of your next few inhales to lift back up to tabletop position. Then tuck your toes. We're going to come up to stand. You can come up to stand however you like, but here's one way. I like to tent my fingertips and draw them back by my knees and push into them, dropping the heels so I have this rounded back. It feels good. I like that sensation. Maybe dropping the head, releasing the back of the neck. And then my hands come back again to some place where I feel like I can push down again. And this time the heels go down, the hips come up, head goes down, and I'm in a standing forward fold. Hands into inner elbows, head dropped, maybe shaking and nodding to make sure that the neck is not holding up the weight of the head. And if you'd like to bend one knee as you straighten the opposite leg, you might do that. Or if you like to sway, you might do that. And eventually dropping the hands and with a rounded back and shrugged shoulders, coming up to stand. I'm going to change my camera angle. So we'll be doing a few standing poses. So for these standing poses, if you have blocks, they might be handy, but they are not required. So we'll start with our feet hip bone distance apart, hands on the low belly, gaze cast downward or eyes closed entirely, a softness in the knees, so not locked knees, and a little bit of movement on the feet, just so you can get in touch with that subtle sense of pressure shifting around the feet. So contact with the earth, that's what you can think of here. And then drawing your attention to the low belly, this inner ground, and seeing what's there and letting the breath start to settle, noticing where you can most easily feel the breath right now. And if you would let go the long, slow breath that we use to drive our movement, you can start to recultivate that now. Drawing in through the nostrils, down the central channel, into the low belly, which expands outward when it fills with breath, and exhaling, the belly comes in as the breath comes up and out. So noticing that process of receiving and letting go. Receiving from the outside environment, letting go what we don't need, settling further. Continue to keep the breath low into the body, slow, and even if possible. You want your inhales and your exhales to be about the same length. And for the air, the flow of air as you're inhaling and as you're exhaling to be consistent. So no quick intakes or gasps or holds, but just a very smooth inhale from the beginning, middle to the end, and a very smooth exhale from the beginning through the middle to the end. Keeping the breath like that. We'll step our legs wide away from each other, and we'll take this is my right leg, but I'm mirroring you, so I invite you to take your left foot and point the toes out. I'm on my mat lengthwise, so that's the short end of my mat. The left toes would be pointing toward. And then the right heel spins back just a little bit. And my pelvis is neither squared toward the front end of my mat, nor the pelvis here. It's not squared to the front, nor is it squared to the side, somewhere in between. But I am going to take my rib cage and I'm going to square my rib cage to the long side of the mat. And I'll inhale and take my arms out and up. And as I exhale, I'm going to bend the front knee. We're coming into Warrior Two pose, Virabhadrasana 2. And you can look out over your front fingertips. Slow, low, and even, the breath comes into the belly. We stabilize, feeling weightedness on the feet. Any sensations of tension or opening or stretch through the mid-body, the legs, around the hips. And that strength of holding the arms, if you're holding your arms, completely optional, up and out, the fingertips reaching away from each other. And then you can drop your back arm hand to hip. And inhale, straighten the front leg. We're going to go to triangle pose. So I'm going to take my right, but your left ribs and lean them out to the side, closer to your left thigh. And the hand is still reaching until you get as far over into this lateral stretch as you're going to go. And then that top hand maybe finds your leg. So from here, if you'd like to deepen, and you'll feel that this is stretching your inner left leg and the back of the left leg as well, the hamstring. You might slide down the leg a little bit more, but not pushing yourself. The depth of this pose is not of interest. What's of interest is that you get the appropriate amount of stretch, that you affect some tissues in the body. Maybe you're feeling it here. So some people will take a block and put it to the inside or outside of the ankle and press the hand into that. And so you're tipped to the side to some degree. Maybe your hand is more like here, but some amount of tip. And if you'd like to add to that tip, stretching your right arm up so that your arms are out to a T. Fingertips are reaching toward the ceiling, palm is facing the same way the head is facing right now, but some people will rotate the head and look up. And some people will rotate the head and look down, front foot. And it's just a choice point. Creates slightly different energies and sensations. But one is not inherently better than the other. Make sure the shoulders are not carrying extra tension, maybe. And breathe low and slow into the belly. Even breath. On your next inhale, leave the legs where they are, but tip the torso up. The arms are back out. Exhale, bend your front knee and your back in Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. So we just bookended the triangle pose. Just stay for a beat or two, feeling into the body. What's the felt sense of the body right now? And then in the next inhale, straightening the front leg and dropping the arms. So if you're oriented on your mat like I am, the way to get to the other side to do those two poses might be to first square your toes to the long end of your mat, and then take your right toes out to the short end, making like the other end of the mat is now the front. And the left heel is going to spin back just slightly. We're not squaring our pelvis toward the front edge of the mat, nor are we squaring it to the side edge. It's somewhere in between. But we take the rib cage and square it. So there's a little bit of a twist there. The rib cage squares to the short side. We inhale the arms up and out and exhale, bend the front knee. And we are in Warrior Two on side two. Feeling the feet on the ground. Feeling our inner ground in the low belly and also the stabilizing effect of the breath. You can even imagine on your inhales drawing up more earth energy through the conduits of the legs, and the exhale hosting it in the low belly. Further capacitating your own resolve, stability, steadiness. Okay, we're going to switch to triangle pose, straightening the front leg, taking the back hand down for a rest for a bit as we sit up, reaching the right side ribs out over the right leg, and finally taking the right hand down for support somewhere on this leg, anywhere, or on a block, or right down to the mat for some folks. And then see, would you like to lift the opposite arm? Completely optional. Maybe you look to the side, maybe you look down to the front foot, maybe you look up to the top hand. So steady in the feet, in touch with our inner ground in the low belly, aware of the breath. On your next inhale, the torso comes up, the arms are out to a T, and exhale, bend the front knee or back into warrior two. Just a couple of beats here, seeing what's familiar, what's fresh. You've already done this pose. Next inhale, you can straighten the legs, dropping the arms, square the toes to the long edge of your mat. We're going to do a wide-legged forward fold. And so in this pose, there are lots of different options for the arms. You can simply slide the hands down the legs as you come forward and down into the forward fold. Or some people will take the hands and interlace the fingers behind their backs and stretch the arms straight and then bring them up and over as they come forward and down. So either way, I'll demonstrate hands on legs because if it's unfamiliar, this would be the place to start. And if you already do this version of the pose, it's part of your practice. You don't need my instruction probably. So take an inhale, exhale, lift that sternum forward, hinge the hips backward. And the legs are relatively straight here. And we start to release the torso down and release the head. And maybe you keep your hands on your legs. Maybe they are up and overhead. Maybe you take the hands down to the mat, shoulder distance apart. The more strong and stable you might feel in the legs, maybe the more you can let the upper body hang freely. Pick a spot to gaze at or close your eyes, but don't let the gaze wander all over. That will invite the mind to wander, and we want to really remain embodied. Our awareness, our mindfulness is in the body. Feeling the soles of the feet, the inner ground in the low belly, the breath, and a general whole body awareness. What's here now? How does the body feel? Engendering a felt sense of the body with all the pleasant and unpleasant and neutral qualities or of sensation right now. To come up out of this pose, maybe you take the hands to the hips, elbows back, peek forward so that you're coming to a more neutral spine, and then keep the weight forward in the feet, not back in the heels as you lift all the way up. Then bring the heels in by a couple of inches. So my toes are now pointed not entirely out, but out a bit, like the turnout of a ballerina. And I'm going to take my arms out to the sides, palms facing forward. I'm going to soften my elbows, soften, meaning bending them. Take an inhale and exhale. Bend the knees out over the toes. So a strong orientation of drawing the low belly in and lifting the rib cage up off the waist and dropping the tailbone can help us feel stable in this pose. If you like to rock side to side, you can. This is goddess pose. I imagine holding the whole earth here in my arms, but really I'm drawing up earth energy through the conduits to the legs and then just visualizing the earth in front of me. My breath is low and slow and even. And maybe the next time you inhale, you straighten the legs and let the hands come down. You can toe heel or hop or step the feet toward each other and stand with the feet hip bone distance apart, a little give in the knees, the hands on the low belly. This is how we began the standing pose sequence. So we're touching back into it. The simplicity of standing, of feeling the feet on the mat, of being in touch with our inner ground in the low belly, and feeling the breath arrive and depart. Steady rhythm. If you find yourself swaying a little bit to the rhythm of the breath, wonderful. Please, throughout practice, follow the cues of your body, in touch with inner sensations and needs, and not pushing, not ignoring, just with a kind attention moving through practice. So this breath that we've kept going at a steady pace, asking it to come low and to be slow, let's start to let go of that demand. And let's see, can we allow the breath to settle into its own natural rhythm without interfering with the breath, allowing it to be involuntary now, allowing it to be just as it is. If it gets a little ragged, if there are pauses, if it becomes shallow, see if you can just let that happen without hanging on to the notion that the breath has to be a certain way. It's just a practice in letting go. So the breath is more subtle now. And I invite you to come down to your mat and to sit down. I'm going to come toward the camera to sit. Okay, so a little bit more movement. We're going to start to funnel from movement, yang energy, down a little bit into more yin-like energy, just the energy of the earth. Okay, so seated on the floor in a way that feels stable for you. So some folks will sit on a meditation cushion or a bit of a blanket and have the legs crossed. There are other ways to sit, but do cross the legs for this if it's available to you. Cross the legs for the next sequence. And so rather than crossing at the ankles, we want to push the knees toward each other and cross right at the shins. Great. Okay, so stabilize for a moment, get in touch with 3 grounds. We've been touching into the earth, the low belly, and the breath. The breath is subtle, gentle, natural, and we've allowed that. A little exercise in letting go. Sometimes it's not so easy to observe the breath without trying to change it. But as we have a little more movement to enact, we will start to invite once again the breath to be low in the belly, slow in pace, and even. Maybe you can get it to about a 3, 4, 5 second long inhale, 5 second long exhale. Just see. Take the hands out to the sides and face the palms forward. And the next time you inhale, lift the arms out and up as you do. You can touch the palms overhead or not, your choice. As you exhale, turn to the right, drop the arms, let your left hand come to wrap around the outside of the right knee. And your right hand is behind you, tented fingertips on the floor to help you feel nice and tall. Take a few cycles of breath, slow inhales and exhales, where on your inhales, I might not be able to see it if I were in the room with you, but internally you can feel there's a lift on the inhale, pressing down into the sit bones, lifting the crown of the head. And internally on your exhales, you're just inviting the energy to be in the twist. Maybe your right ribs are going back a little bit further. You can rotate the head to look back behind you as well. Stay here for one more inhale and one more exhale. And the next time you inhale, lift the back arm up and face forward. And exhale with the hand wrapped around the opposite knee, lean over. So the right sit bone over here is really pressing down and you're leaning away from it. Don't let it go along for the ride. Couple cycles of breath here in your side stretch. And then on an exhale, you'll take that top arm and wrap it around the opposite knee. So you've wrapped your hands around both knees and you're straightening up the spine and staying here for a bit. So it's a little bit of an odd posture. You'll stay for one more inhale. And as you exhale, you'll bend the elbows, pull the knees toward each other, drop the head, round the back, cat pose. And then inhaling from that cat pose, lift the head up. Start to come up, keep your elbows or your arms crossed and lift your hands. Maybe it's possible to bring the backs of the forearms together and to then tuck one hand against one palm, or maybe simply you're like this. But either way, let's set our shoulders down, and the next time we inhale, let's lift the elbows and the hands together. Shoulders remain down, and as we exhale, we drop. Inhale, lift. Exhale, drop. Inhale, lift. Exhale, drop. Inhale, lift. Exhale, unwind. Tent your fingertips. Touch the floor in front of you. Maybe this little tip forward, a hinge at the hips is a nice forward fold for you. Maybe you don't feel anything and you want to come further. Coming down to some degree. And the interesting thing is the movement was all about the torso coming forward and down and flexing at the hips, but really the effect of this position, this forward fold, the effect of it is in the hips, which I'm sure you can feel. So just stay down into your, or over into your forward fold for a couple cycles of breath. And then the next time you inhale, lifting up and out. We'll do that sequence again. We only twisted to one side and we only did one lateral stretch, so we have to do the other side. This time as we move through the sequence, we'll go a little bit more quickly. We won't breathe any more quickly, but we'll spend fewer breaths in each position because I just want to demonstrate this flow and how fluid it can be if you get to know it. So this is the second time we're doing it, so maybe it'll be a little familiar. Take an inhale, lift the arms out and up. Exhale, turn to the left, drop the arms for a twist. Inhale, lift the back arm up into the sky, facing forward. And exhale, side stretch. Stay for one inhale here. And exhale, drop that top arm down, wrap it around the knee and right to yourself. Take an inhale, feel tall. Exhale, cat pose. Inhale, sitting up, lifting the arms into eagle pose. Eagle arms and dropping the shoulders on the exhale. Inhaling, lift the elbows and hands. Exhale, drop. Inhale, lift. Exhale, drop. We'll do a couple more. There's a lot of background noise where I am. You can probably hear the street noise. So remaining as embodied as possible, even as we take in data from the outside environment. You're listening to my voice after all. Eventually unwinding and taking a forward fold to whatever degree you'd like. And eventually sitting up. And it might feel great at this point to undo the cross of the legs. And I forgot to have you switch the cross of the legs halfway through that sequence. But normally when we sit down into cross-legged positions, of course, we all have one leg we always put forward of the other. So my intention had been to have you switch. You might do that now and just see. For those of us who haven't done a lot of yoga yet, the first time you're asked to do this, it can be really strange. It's just simply crossing in the non-dominant way. Okay, now we're going to lie onto our backs and do a couple more poses. So I invite you to maybe put a blanket down for your head and keep your knees bent and feet on the mat as you put the spine down. So hands on the low belly, in touch with the floor as a way of being in touch with the earth, in touch with our inner ground in the low belly, and feeling the breath. So we've been going back and forth between moving and being still. And whenever we're moving, I invited you to have a long, slow, smooth, steady breath. And when we were still, I invited you to let that go. I'm going to invite you to let that go again. So see if you can just allow the breath to be as it is, no matter how subtle or uneven it is. It has its own rhythm. So we're going to move into four square pigeon prep. So many names for this pose. If you prefer to do pigeon and you know it well, you can flip over and do that. So we'll take the right ankle to the left knee. For some folks, this does it. I mean, all of a sudden you feel something in the right hip, so you have found your pose. For other folks, you're not feeling sensation in the right hip or target area yet. And so in that case, you would lift the left leg toward your torso, bringing both legs toward the torso. You might thread your right arm through the legs, the left arm to the outside of the legs, interlace the fingers behind the back of the left leg or in front of the left shin. You can pull in as much or as little as you like. Let the sensation in the left hip be your guide. Not overdoing anything. Remember, the name of this class is Gentle Unwind Yoga. So let's definitely keep the intention to align with that, not pushing ourselves. There's nowhere to go. There's really no agenda here other than getting to know ourselves with kindness. So after a few beats there, we're going to come back. If you had pulled the legs in, put the left foot down. And instead of the right ankle being on the left knee, now we're just going to cross the right leg over the left entirely. So the right thigh is resting on the left. We're going to go toward a twist. If you need to be protective of your back, then you can uncross and just have your inner ankles and knees together. If you are crossed, if you love twisting, you can actually do eagle legs. Take those right toes and tuck them behind the left calf. Arms out to a T. However your legs are, you might press into the left foot so you can shift your hips to the right slightly before you allow the knees to start coming down to the left. And they'll come down to some degree. Something will stop them. Either the tissues of your body will stop at some point and there will be space here between the legs and the floor. And you just fill the space with something soft so that the legs can relax and release. Or maybe they've come down. You just want to make sure that you can rest the legs. You're not doing any gripping in any of the muscles of the hips or legs. So your arms are out to a T maybe. If you want, you can take your right arm up alongside the ear. The right hand might land on the floor above your head, or it might be better on a block. The right elbow is bent. And I'm just weighting, WEIGHT, weighting my right shoulder blade and sort of leaning back to the right in my upper body slightly. And for me, that brings sensation up into the right side ribs. You can have your nose toward the ceiling, or you can look left, or you can look right. Very different effects, all with different benefits. Looking left is super comfy. So that's a good thing to note. So choosing a position for the head, having set up your pose just how you'd like it because it serves you best, your energy and your intention. You can settle in. Don't forget to breathe. And just let the breath be just as it needs to be. Not demanding it be a certain way. Just feel the breath naturally taking care of bringing you nourishment from the atmosphere. And feel the earth below holding you up. That grounding energy of the earth received by settling the body down. And that uplifting, vibrant energy of the sky, receiving that through inhales. And I'm going to move so I can sit up and more easily speak, but the invitation is for you to stay. So we stay without engaging any muscles, just staying in the twist, soft in our expression of embodiment. And it might be the longer you stay, the more you feel the body settle. If the longer you stay, the more you feel like there's a strain or a tension, you feel like there's something growing that indicates some sort of striving or effort or overdoing, in that case, you probably want to unwind a little bit from your twist, because that's not the intention here. We're not pushing ourselves into some ambitious pose. We just kind of bound ourselves up into a twist, and then we settled into the field of gravity, which really does the rest. So just check and make sure you're not doing more than you need to. And if you are, and that's a tendency of yours, you might give it like a little smile or a nod. I see you, my striving self. I certainly have one of those. And see if you can tune into the breath as a way, especially the exhales, as a way to invite that part of you to settle a little further. Get on board with this idea of relaxing now. It's a process. We have to remember over and over our intention, and to check and see what parts of ourselves are operating that don't need to be. Before we leave this position, you might take 3 cycles of breath that are big suddenly. Just like really fill up down into the belly. And exhale maybe with the mouth open. Inhale, draw in what you need. Exhale, release what you don't. Okay. So from there, we will unwind so that we can do the pose on side 2. So the legs are over to the left. You lift them up and uncross and square. Take some moments to settle the spine and feel into neutral. Maybe hands on the belly. Whole body awareness, supported by earth, belly, and breath. But awake and aware and alive throughout the whole body. So, side 2, we started with 4 square, right? So left ankle to right knee, perhaps threading the needle, bringing the arms through and drawing the legs in. So here you might do a little bit of drawing in if you'd like to produce more of a sensation. Deepen the left hip, but not over striving. And definitely preparing for the next pose, which is really a receptive invitation. And then releasing the right foot down, arms out to a T. Maybe you uncross your legs for the twist, which makes a milder twist. Maybe you cross them. Maybe you do eagle legs. The hips bump to the left, the knees come down to the right to some degree, and we take a soft prop and put them under a knee or a calf or a thigh to make sure there's a platform. If it's not the floor, it's another platform for the legs. Maybe the arms stay out to a T, or you rest your left arm on the side body, or maybe lift the left arm up and over. Elbow bent, left shoulder blade weighted, hand resting. You can look to the left. You'll feel that twist that's in the back producing sensations. It'll be coming right up into the neck, and you'll feel sensations there as well. Or letting go of that with nose towards ceiling, or really comfy, look to the right. Your choice. Settling in. Receptive. Opening up to the experience, the life really that's available to you right here, right now in this body, heart, and mind that you are closest to. Your very own. So I'm moving, but the invitation is for you to stay put for a spell. So we're doing this twist in a yin yoga style. Receptive, passive, held for a while, non-striving, unambitious. A friend of mine who also teaches yin says that in yin you get to be a C student. So it's not about alignment. It's not about, I was going to say it's not about effort, but it's very much about effort. It's about right effort. It's about making sure your effort is just where it needs to be for every pose, and you don't have any other doing or contraction anywhere else in the body. But it just so happens this last pose before Shavasana, of course by design, this twist, really no effort required in terms of holding yourself physically where you are. So the outer method, the outer practice, the asana, the pose, the posture, the physicality is done for us. We don't have to do anything but dwell here. But we have this deep interest in the inner method, right? Which could be breathing, or it could be meditation. I'm going to invite you, we've been going back and forth between purposeful breath and natural breath. I'm going to invite you now to really keep the breath natural and to zero in on where you can feel it best in the body. Rest your attention on that area and feel the breath arrive and depart. And let this be something that holds your interest. Get curious about the breath, the middles, the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of each inhale and exhale. Starting to stabilize the mind. You might not get rid of thoughts, but they might be fewer and farther in between. There might be space in between where you can rest, not only in body, but in mind. And now I invite you to unwind from this twist. Undo it slowly, intentionally. Take any other poses, postures, or movements that you feel like the body is calling for. And then set yourself up for Shavasana, corpse pose. It's the ultimate expression of letting go. It's putting the body into a restful position, but not blissing out in the mind. We want to stay here. If the body's going to feel good after that practice, if as you rest in Shavasana, there's some ease, you don't want to miss that. So the body's resting, and the mind is gently alert. You don't want the mind to be like overstimulated, over alert, keyed up. It's a gentle alertness. There may be a sense in the body of balance. We resourced ourselves from the earth and from the sky. You might feel right in the middle in your low belly. You might feel a sense of being both grounded and lively. Grounded and growing, you might say. I hope you've gotten whatever props you need for Shavasana so that you can fully relax. Maybe you have a blanket under the head or the backs of the knees or over the belly or all three. I'm sitting up so you can more easily hear me or I can more easily speak, but you're resting, hopefully. And a little bit of inspiration for our strivers out there, from Thomas Merton. He says the rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everything and everyone, is to succumb to violence. So, taking in right now what it feels like to do less. And if you feel as though you're someone who maybe would do well to do less, if it would be good for your body, heart, and mind to do less, maybe making the commitment to that now prior to moving out into the rest of your evening or day. We've been practicing in a way where we come into an intimate relationship with the body and its wildness. And this disconnected, accumulative, disembodied society we're part of, it doesn't really give us a lot of space to do this. So carving out practice time as you have today is such a wonderful thing, a countercultural act. You can have the healing that embodied awareness gives you. I invite you to rest for another minute. And then in recognition that we get to know our own body, heart, and mind and take care of it as a first step in getting to know and taking care of others and to making ourselves more available to others. We will rest in our last few moments with this open-hearted wish that all beings will be free of suffering and know happiness and experience peace. To whatever measure we have that for ourselves in this moment, wishing it for others as well. For all beings on the planet and the earth herself. I invite you to stay resting as long as you'd like, or if you decide to come up and out of Shavasana, to do so in a way that doesn't disrupt whatever ease and peace whatever measure of it you were able to tap into. So I thank you very much for your practice. It's been a pleasure to know that I'm practicing with others, though I cannot see you. Be well.